In today's video, it will be a very requested topic. It will be SAP Account Determination. So it is an integration point between material management and finance. Have you seen my last video? It was about stock determination in inventory management. Check it out. Also, if you don't want to miss any of these videos again, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Hello and welcome back to a new video. In this week, we will talk about SAP Account Determination or the integration between MM and FI. This topic was very requested during the week, and we will try to make it as simple as possible. First, we're going to give a brief overview, and then, as usual, we are going to go with the details in the customizing. Here you can see that we split this in like 3 levels. First, what's related to the organizational structure. And here we have a company code where we have one chart of account that is linked to the company code. And in the company code, we have the plants that are also linked or belongs to the company code. And then in MM, we have the valuation areas. Technically, we can have valuation areas at company code level or at plant level. But normally, we will use a valuation area at plant level. So different plants can have different valuations for the same materials. And then we have the valuation grouping code. You can assign the GL accounts for automatic account determination dependent on the valuation area. To minimize the necessary effort involved, valuation areas with the same account number assignment can be grouped together. This is done through the valuation grouping code. So the valuation grouping code is then used to assign the GL account numbers. Okay? Basically, it's a grouping of valuation areas. Then let's go to the material level. Here, when we create our material master, we will have a material number, and we will have all the views. One of them will be the accounting view. And in the accounting view, you know that you have to assign a valuation class. In customizing them, we will see that valuation class is linked to material type using the accounting reference. But we will talk about that later in the customizing. So by now, we need to know that in the material master, we have the accounting views, and in the accounting view, we have to select valuation classes. And when we create a material master, we have to define which material type it will be used. And then on the setting of the material type, we will have the values and quantity updates that can be possible for the material type. And then we have, at the end, the business transactions. These are the standard transactions that can be driven in the system. So basically here we have goods during all the process of goods movements and invoice verification, we will see that we have value strings. Value strings keys are for SAP internal usage. It is just a pointer to the transaction event, this one, which is necessary for automatic account determination. Movement types are linked to transactions key via a value string. The system automatically determines the value string assigned to a specific transaction. It depends partly on the entered parameters manually and partly on parameters derived internally by the system. The value string contains all posting transactions that are possible for a certain transaction. The program decides which of these posting transactions leads to GL account posting in individual cases. You cannot define this in customizing. For example, in the standard system, we had value string WE01 that is assigned to good receipts for standard and subcontracting purchase order without account assignment concerning to evaluated material into stock. And we have the transactions or event key. Here you don't have to define these transactions or key. They are already determined in the system automatically for the specific transactions that you have in the invoice verification or during the inventory management with the movement types. You need only to assign the GL accounts to which postings are to be made to each posting transaction. You assign the relevant GL accounts to the corresponding posting transaction in customizing for valuation and account assignments. We will see this, as we mentioned, then in the details from the customizing. And then at the end, we have the accounting group. So in this function, you can assign an accounting group to movement types. The accounting grouping is a finer subdivision of the transaction event keys for the account determination. For example, during a good movement, the offsetting entry of the inventory posting, that is transaction GBB, can be made to different accounts depending on the movement type. For example, we will have accounting grouping inside GBB for initial entry stock, that will be BSA, or for good issue for cost center, like BBR. Now let's go and see all the details in customizing. Let's go now step by step with our customizing. So we are in our IMNG and we go to material management, valuation and account assignment. And here we have the topic for account determination. And we're going to do this without the wizard. So the first point is to define the valuation control. And we are going to say that valuation grouping code is active. Okay. Then group together valuation areas. So here we have our valuation group codes, for example, 0001. And here we have our valuation areas that for us will be the plants. So we see, for example, for plant 1000, we have valuation grouping code 0001, and it will be the same valuation groups for all the other plants that belong to the same company code. But you can do this or set up this as you need. The main point or idea is that we are grouping different valuation areas or plant into one valuation grouping code. So then we can use this grouping code in the account determination setting, so it will be easier to link all the accounts to one grouping code instead of linking all the accounts to every valuation area. Then we have the definition of the valuation classes. So here we have these 3 points. The first one is the account category reference. And here we also, it's a grouping, and then we link this account reference to similar material types. Okay, but here is with just a key. Then we have the valuation classes that are linked to the account category reference. Okay, for example, 0001 is the account category reference for raw materials. So here we have the link to the different valuation classes that we will need for our raw materials. And in the last step, we have the accounting reference, for example, again, 0001, that is raw material, with a link to the material types. Okay? So you see that 001 is linked to all these material types, included the raw materials. Okay. Yeah, we have here. So based on this, when we create a material and we go that it has a material type already defined, and we go to the accounting view based on the material type and using the accounting category reference, it will display all the different valuation classes that are allowed for that material type. Then we have the accounting grouping for the movement types. And you see here we have all the movement types. Here we have the special stock. If we have an update in value or in quantities, and we have different parameters. Yeah. Also, we have the value string with the counter, the transactions or key event, and the modifier. But you see that you cannot make a lot of changes here. You can only do some changes in some account modifiers. Okay. If you want to see all the value string, because this is something that are already defined in the system, you will find those in table T156W. Okay. So here you will have the list of all the value strings with all the different settings. For example, let's check what we mentioned before, like a good receipt 101 is WE01. Yeah, and here you see all the transactions key that are defined for this value string and the different counters. So in the case of evaluated goods received for purchase order items that are not subject to account assignment, post the item to a stock account using the transaction key BSX. Yeah? And make an offsetting entry to a GRAR clearing account. That will be WRX. So these two will be used when you make a good received to stock based on APO, for example. The stock account will be determined by the transaction BSX, and the GRAR clearing account will be based on WRX. A price difference posting, for example, transaction key PRD, is only used if the evaluated material is subject to standard price control, and if the order price or the invoice price is different from the standard price. Then we have a KDM. This one is required in inventory management for purchase order in foreign currencies because of differences in exchange rates between good receipts and invoice receipts, unless the materials cannot be debit or credit because it is subject to standard price control. Then we have EIN, EKG. These ones are only used in company codes where purchase account management is active. This happens like in countries like in France, in Belgium, I think also in Spain. And then we have transaction key BSV, FRL. These ones are used FRN as well. Yeah. These ones are used for subcontracting item categories. So here you have the list of all the ones. We cannot go one by one with all the transactions because there are a lot, but you can Google it and you will find the definition when they are used. So let's go back here. And the next one, if you want to, if your company goes in one of those countries where you need to use a purchase account management. Okay, so you have to activate this one. And at the end, we have the automatic postings. So here we have three options. The first one is where we had to make all the settings for the account determination based on the transactions. We will go here in a minute. Then when this is done, you have also a simulation tab where you can see, for example, for your plant and for one material and for which movement type, for example, if you want to see how a good receipt works, normal good receipts, you can check the account assignments. You will see some errors if there are. And you can see here the organization data, plant, company codes, charge of accounts, and the groupings. All these concepts are the ones that we already explained in the overview. Then at material level, you have material, valuation classes, material type, and if we have the value update. And then we have the movement type. And here you can see all the different lines for the different activities for the valuation classes, and you see the different accounts that are used, okay? And also here you have the option to check the screen, the field selection screen, because you know that you have to have, they have to be in sync, the field selection screen for the movement type and for the GL account, okay? If you have one that is suppressed, it cannot be mandatory in the other, like for example. So that one is the simulation. Then you can see also all the GL accounts for company code and your valuation area. So here you will have the list of all the accounts for your chart of accounts. So here you have the accounts, the valuation class, and you have the transactions and the account modifiers. Okay, so here you can see all the list for all your accounts. Okay, now let's go back to the account assignment. So as we mentioned here, you have the list of all transactions. Yeah? And let's go to check some of them. Let's go to the GRAR. It will be the simplest one, WRX. Always you have to point to your chart of accounts. And you can see here it's defined just one account, and it's only it doesn't matter if it's debit or credit. You are using always the same account for this transaction. Okay, so you see here that you have the rules, and in the rules you can specify how the accounts has to be determined based if you need different account for debit or credit, and if you have a general modification, valuation class modification, or the valuation modifier. Okay, these are different levels where you can split your account determination. In the case of WRX or the GRAR account, let's say it's the simplest in this case, it is not active on any of those levels. So you are using just for this transaction only one account, always. Then, for example, if we go to BSX, that is inventory posting, yeah, you see here now that we have valuation classes. Okay, in the example before we have only accounts. So if we see the rule here, you see that we have valuation class, right? But debit credit is not changeable here. Okay. So you see that we are using only one account that will be the same for debit and credit. And the difference of the accounts can be done by the valuation class. So different valuation classes can have different accounts for the same transaction. And then if we want to see like one transaction that have all the options active, we can check the offsetting entry for inventory posting, GBB. Yeah, and here you can see that we have all the rules for all the different options are active. So you can see that we have the valuation grouping, okay? Then we have the general modification, then we have the evaluation classes. Okay, these are the modifiers, and we have also the differentiation between debit and credit account. Okay, so here for plan 1000 that we were using, for example, it is assigned to the valuation group 0001. So for GBB and 001, you have all these modifiers, BSA, like initial entry of stock, IMB for inventory, BBR for the offsetting, and different valuation classes. And also, you can see the procedures for, and you will have, again, the list of all the transactions. And you also have the posting keys option. This is more related to FI, but you can see for debit or credit, which will be the posting keys that are used. Okay, now let's go and see more in details with real examples. Now we will see with real examples how the account determination works. So before starting, I choose one material, and in plan 1000 and in plan 1100, we have the same settings as both plans belong to the valuation group 0001. We can check that quickly. So plant 1000 belongs to grouping code 0001 and 1100 for the same one. Okay, so now let's do and create one PO for this material in plant 1000. Now let's do the good receipt. So it will be a good receipt based on a purchase order. In plan 1000. Okay, this is done. So now we have to go and check the accounting document. So let's see what we have here. So we have a debit to the inventory account, 300,000. And this is BSX, okay? And then we have the credit to the GRAR, 191100. That is 191100. So we can see that so we use BSX, it's inventory posting for valuation class 3000. We have this account. This is the entry. And then the credit will be this one. Yeah. So it's this one. And you see this is 96 and the other is 89. These are the posting keys. 96 on the credit and on the debit 89. Okay. So this was a good receipt based on a PO. So now what we can do is a good receipt based on other. For the same part. And let's do an initial entry stock in plant 1000. It is done. Let's check the accounting document for this one. Okay. So now we have debit is the stock because we are adding stock. So it's the same BSX, 300,000. Yeah. And then we have GBB BSA, that is the offsetting. So here you have to see that for your grouping, not this one that is blank. Okay, you have to check for the grouping 001. Yeah, for the modifier BSA, valuation class 3000. This is the account. And you see this is the one that was also determined with 96 on the credit side. Yeah, on the credit side. Okay, this was a good receipt for initial entry stock. And now we can do a good issue. For the same part in the same plant. So this is a good issue to cost center. Okay, I don't care about the WM part, so let's keep it by now. And let's do a display. Of the financial document. So here, now we have reduced our stock. So BSA is on the credit, it's negative. So we have BSA for the stock. And we have the consumption 400,000, that is BBR. So in GPB, BBR 3000. Okay. So this is the account that is used. Okay. So good. This is how this is working. So now let's do a change to see how it works. And let's say that for plant 1100, then we are going to use a different valuation group. because we want to use different accounts. Okay. So let's do some changes in the customizing. So for plant 1100, let's call it 00Z001. So now the grouping is different. Yeah, it is not going to 0001, but instead it's going to Z001. And we have to change as well the postings. So let's go on GBB. So GBB BSA is the initial entry of stock. So we can copy this one. And instead of 3999, let's do a change with this one. And so we are saying for BSA, we are changing for BSA, we are changing to this one. And then on BBR for Valuation class 3000, let's copy this one. And let's use this one. So here we are changing to this one. Let me see if in BSA I change debit and credit. We will have our entries here at the bottom. Yeah. So we change both BSA and BBR as well. So, okay, now let's go and do some movements in plant 1100. So let's do a good receipt based on other. For 561 in plant 1100 0001. And let's see if now different accounts are being used. So now we have debit, BSA, this was not changed. Sorry, BSX, yes, was not changed. Yeah. And then we have with the 7 GBB BSA for the initial entry of stock. So you see that here it is using the new account, right? BSX was not changed because we don't have in the rules, you see, if you remember, for BSX, we don't have activated the rule to have differentiation based on the groupings. We have only valuation class. We don't have the grouping as a column here. Yeah, it's not on the rules. So now let's do the good issue. For cost center in plant 1100, Okay, it is posted. Let's check the accounting document again. So this is a good issue. So we are crediting BSX 300,000. Yeah, it's the same. BSX has not been changed. And now we should use the new for GBB BBR, yeah, the one ended with 10. And you see now we are taking this new account. Yeah. So the customizing that we have changed, it made effect. Okay. So before we have both plans with the same grouping, so all the accounting were the same. But let's suppose that you need a requirement, or you have a requirement, or for different plans, you need to use different accounts or sets of accounts for different transactions. So in this case, you can use the different valuation groups for that. Okay, and then you need to do the settings for the account determination for the new valuation group as well.
If you enjoyed this video, please give a like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And see you next time. Bye.